Hello YouTubers, I want to welcome you to another edition of Bargain Bin Gear. And hopefully you're subscribing and liking the channel and so on. Mostly because I refer to older videos. And this is a continuation of those videos. It's an easy way to find them. Okay, so recently, as you know, I had gotten a, a Maris Enzo X guitar synthesizer. And it was quite expensive. I mean, it was like $600. And I got it, and very disappointed in it. Just mostly sound effects, you know, weren't really usable. At least for me. You know, that was my experience with it. So I returned it and was so sorely disappointed. I even got out my 9 pedals and did exotic sounds, you know, video where I use the 9 pedals to get sounds. However, I also made a purchase, and I don't know why I hadn't done that before, but basically, Line 6 had a pedal years ago called the DL4. It was basically a delay pedal. Anyway, skip about 20 years, and they came out with the Line 6 DL4 MK2. And knew this pedal was about $299. A far cry from $600. However, as I was looking around, well, I saw one, and it was about $139. What? Well, that had to be a deal, right? And, basically, the pedal has 30 delays and 15 reverbs. And most of the delays and things I was familiar with because of the HX1 pedal that I have, which basically lets you choose one of those delays or reverbs and so on. However, the DL4 MK2 not only had that, but it also had a looper. I thought, that's really interesting, right? And for the price, I mean, my goodness, it was a good deal. And I just sold a speaker, so that helps to pay for this unit. And, well, I got it. And I did the 4 easy pay, of course, and it came out to about $42. 4 payments of $42. Okay, so that's a bargain. And when I received it, my goodness, it looked brand new. And we can take a look at it here. Here's the unit that I received, and looks brand spanking new. The connections on the back here, and lights up, of course, and we'll get into that here soon enough. And so there you go. It didn't come with a power supply, but it's a pretty common one, 9 volt, 500 milliamp. So any of these power bricks should be able to handle that. And sure enough, it did. So, powered it up. Now, when I received it, it wasn't set up right. Or correctly, if you like. I didn't think so. Anyway. In fact, so much so, I thought, oh man, the guy sent me a busted unit, right? But that isn't the case at all, in fact. So, you know, twisting the knobs and things and learning about the secondary functions, hitting this Alt button, and the secret 15 reverb types. And the very first thing I noticed was, well, the sound quality I thought was really good. I mean, it was just kind of... One thing it had that I absolutely love on the HX1 is one of my favorite settings. It's just a swell note. So that was really cool, and it sounded really good. And so then I just messed around with sounds, you know. So all that was fine, sound-wise. It's a little tricky getting the knobs to get them to do what you want them to do, basically. Now here's the thing I couldn't figure out, is that I would go to the looper, right, which is a separate effect here. This is the part I couldn't figure out. You know that one sound that I really liked, this one. Right. When I was switched to looper, well, the sound was gone. So that was the sound that it was supposed to have. And so I was really disappointed. I was like, well, then that looper is trash, right? And so I was thinking, man, I got, you know, messed over again. And I'm going to sell this pedal, right? Can't use a looper. What's the point? Psh, sad. However, I pulled out the owner's manual, right, and also watched some videos, and finally, someone on one of these videos, right, said, well, there's the one button looper. And I was like, oh, a one button looper. And this one button looper, you have to go in and configure it from the global settings, okay? And once you do that, it takes this tap tempo away, basically. And you get the right-handed knob, the fourth knob, turns white, right? And that's the one button looper. And once you do that, no matter what sound you're on, right, it can, it'll record it. So for example, if I was to play just... and I'll loop it. And now I can change sounds and even overdub. So for example, okay, now I'm going to overdub with a different sound. I can do that with any sound. Erasing the loop. Okay, so that took care of a lot of the problems with this pedal, right? Is finding out about the one button looper. And I mean, it should ship by default with a one button looper, or else the looper becomes totally pointless if it can't record, you know, the different sounds. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is, you know, to get my favorite sound so far is this one, you know, this kind of the swell sound, right? This kind of... And to get that sound, originally every time I wanted that sound, I had to go and turn the knob to the right position and turn on the legacy thing. Right? Well, that got kind of old real fast. So that's when I discovered that, okay, by default, if you use the one-button looper, which I think should be the standard default part of this machine, well, you've got presets. In this case, accessible from just the foot switches, you just have 3 presets. So I've got that's the first preset. The second preset is, and the third preset so far, I was just messing with it. Alright, so there's 3 presets, and then you have the one-button looper, and that takes care of your 4 foot switches. Now, and this threw me for a loop because I didn't know about the one-button looper, and so I went in and they said, hey, if you set the global access setting to yellow on a certain reverb, right, then that gives you the D, E, and F setting. And basically, you've got A, B, C for your presets, your first 3 presets. And then, on the tap tempo, the 4th button, right, which is, right now the looper, the one-button looper, which is essential to this pedal. Well, then you could get D, E, and F. You could get 3 more presets. Problem is, you can't do both. You cannot have A, B, C, D, E, F if you're going to use the one-button looper. So you've got a choice. You can use the one-button looper or take off the one-button looper and then hit it and get A, B, C, and then D, E, and F. Okay, preset-wise. However, and I just tested this, it's pretty darn cool. If you have MIDI, okay, all of a sudden you have 128 presets available. And I thought, oh, how cool, 128 different sounds. No, 128 empty spaces, but you've got to program each sound, alright? And it works really easily. Oh, sorry. It works really easily with a MIDI controller. You know, you just program it to send, let's say, a program change 10. Okay, what that does is opens up the 10th space, 10th preset, and it's empty, right? So you go in and you find a sound you like, and then you can save it to that 10th preset and recall it. So, in other words, we have access to 128 presets. Now, the bad thing is, you have to recall in your mind, basically, what each of those presets is going to do. So if you have 128 of them, you either have to write down what it is or actually call it up and hear it, you know, first. 128. But that sure beats 3, doesn't it? You know, especially for kind of improvising things. So I'm really pleased with that. There's tons of other stuff you can do with MIDI, but the basics are being able to call up those presets. And one thing I should mention as well is when you're using the one button looper, what's cool is besides the 3 presets, right, you can just use the knobs, and so you get one extra sound. And it's one that you haven't saved to a preset. There's one. So we can use that. And then from here you can add presets and so on. So notice that when I put it in half speed, it gets a little noisy, you know. That's alright, I don't really use that too often. However, I should mention that the boomerang, right, you can put it in half speed and it doesn't get noisy. Just saying. Anyway, look, for $139, this pedal is awesome. However, I tell you, I was about to sell it when I discovered, before I discovered the one button looper. I was like, man, this thing is sad. Can't even record different sounds. Are you kidding me? That's like the early days of looping, you know. But I discovered that it just wasn't set up correctly, you know. And in fact, I think, because it makes it unusually difficult to work with if the one button looper is not engaged, right? So, and I understand that they want to, you know, give as many options as possible, right? But the one button looper is essential to this pedal, you know, as far as being able to record all the different sounds, right, in a loop. And once you figure that out, then it's like, oh, okay. You know, and there's still tons more they can do, but this is the basic idea, right? And so it's been really fun, and you know, the 3 buttons are for the presets. 3 presets obviously is not enough, you know. But then when you have the looping pedal, in fact, I'll try it here. I just tried a couple, you know, preset 10, 11, and 12, I think it is. Okay, so basically, we've got this sound. Now if I switch it to MIDI, preset 11. Here's preset 12. So you get the idea, basically. And what you can do is, let's say I came up with another sound that I really like for some reason. Like, let's say... Okay, hold on. Preset 12. So now I just hold down the lit preset button. It'll flash 3 times and it saves that preset. So now if I was on preset 11, right, and I can loop that as well, just... Now go to preset 12. Okay, so those are the MIDI presets, and those 3 presets are just test presets. You know, just trying to find an obviously different sound, and then putting it in presets like 10, 11, 12, just to see if it works, you know. And it does, it works great. Another deal with MIDI is that, well, that's you know, as long as you have some way of sending out MIDI clock, it sets the tempo for you, right? And then all you have to deal with is the subdivisions knob, you know. You don't need to tap the tempo in and that kind of thing. because that's the one thing with the one button looper. It takes away the tap tempo. Now, you can hook up other foot switches with it. You know, I messed around a little bit with that. But really what I was interested in was the one button looper. So if you're going to get one of these, or you own one of these, make sure to set it up so that you can use the one button looper, right? And it's pretty straightforward. I think it's on the, what's that called? The crisscross thing, global setting, I think sets up the one button looper. You know, I suppose there are people who aren't using that, and I'm not sure how they're doing it then. So anyway, that's essential to this pedal, to figuring out this pedal. And so now, really, all I have to do is set up preset blanks, basically, and then configure sounds. And when I run across a sound that I make that I like, right, I can set it, save it as a preset, you know, and mark it somewhere. The other thing is that online it comes with a cheat sheet, and that is because some of the functions, especially the reverb, right, is not listed on the panel of the effects unit. Right, that's why they call them the secret reverbs. But you can assign any of the 15 reverbs to any of the delay types, right? And I mean, I've barely scratched the surface as far as that goes. And in fact, to be quite honest, the only real preset that I've done is the second one, the swell one, that I really like. You know. But this pedal has a lot of promise to it, you know. And had I not found the one button looper idea, you know, I would have sold this pedal for sure. Just saying. And you know, when you first get the pedal and it's not configured, you have no idea. You know, I'm lucky that I ran across that. Because all of a sudden the pedal came alive and was more usable on there, you know. I mean, there's tons and tons of sounds on here, you know. As far as I remember, let's see. I mean, we won't go into all the different sounds, but there's quite a few of them. It's kind of crazy. Anyway, you get the idea. And I mean, that's half the fun, I guess, is dialing in a sound that you like and then saving it to a preset, you know. And then being able to loop that as well. Oh, and I forgot, the MIDI clock also syncs MIDI tempo, right? So it'll set the tempo for you. Or if you've got a drum machine, right, it'll sync to that as well. So your loops will sync and everything. It's pretty cool. And also the each preset that you make also syncs together, you know. So there you go. There's the Line 6 DL4 MK2, right? The Mark II, and it's yeah, awesome, especially for the price. Now sappy, it's got a microphone jack in the back, so if you're singing or and want to use the effects, you can. I probably won't use that very often. Alright, very good. I'll see you next time. Okay.